This regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of June 6, 2018. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you are parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, please be sure to pick up a parking coupon on your way out for free parking. They're right over here. And out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We will appreciate your cooperation. Please note that the Planning Commission action is final on the following agenda items. Item 1.1, use permit number 18004. Item 2.1B, use permit number 107F. Item 2.2B, special permit number 18019. Item 4.2C, special permit number 13055C. And item 4.2D, special permit number 18023. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular hearing held May 23rd, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved. Finnegan.
Second, Beckius.
Please call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hove,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Amy to read all of the consent agenda items into the record, and once those items are read, she will ask if there's anyone wishing to speak. If you do wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Amy, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Thank you. The only item today is item 1.1, use permit number 18004, to include 5 lots for public and commercial uses on approximately 7.58 acres, more or less, on property generally located at North 98th Street and O Street, and this is final action. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
Yes, I had a conversation with Mallory Peterson in regards to potential siren noise. Connected her with George. I think Brian and Pat responded to her that sirens will be used as needed.
Any others? Okay.
And is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? If so, please stand and state your interest.
So we will entertain a motion then.
Move approval, Hove.
Second. Core.
Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hove,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
I will now ask Amy to call any requests for deferral and pending received prior to this hearing.
Thank you. We received a request to place the following related items on the Planning Commission pending list for public hearing and action until further notice. Item 2.1A, change of zone number 18013 from AGR to O3. And item 2.1B, use permit number 107F to expand the use permit by approximately 1.12 acres for an additional 13,400 square feet of commercial floor area, both located generally at 8435 Firethorn Lane.
So we'll entertain a motion.
Move to place on pending. Second, Harris.
Was that Core and Harris?
Yes, it was,
Sorry.
yes.
I wasn't
right.
sure how to word it.
Thank you.
Please
Beck-
call the roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hove,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. So these will be placed on the Planning Commission pending list.
Is there anyone wishing to testify on either of these applications rather than waiting until pending ends? Okay, I don't see any.
Okay, next we received a request on behalf of the applicant to defer the following associated applications for 2 weeks to the June 20th meeting. 2.2A is change of zone number 18014 from R2 to R3. 2.2B is special permit number 18019 for 21 dwelling units with a CUP, and 2.2C is street and alley vacation number 18002 to vacate approximately 50 by 40 feet of the West B Street right-of-way. These are all generally located at Southwest 17th and West B Streets.
We'll entertain a motion.
So moved to place on pending Finnegan until June 20th.
Yes.
Second, Core.
Okay, please call roll.
Beckius,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hove,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Washington, or Shear, excuse me.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. These
Is-
will now appear on the June 20th hearing.
Right. Is there anyone wishing to testify in these applications now instead of waiting until June 20th? Okay, I don't see any. We will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation, and the applicant will be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Amy, please call the first public hearing item.
Thank you. Item 4.1 is comprehensive plan conformance number 18011 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the West O redevelopment plan to add the West O Street revitalization project, which involves a series of improvements within the public rights-of-way along West O Street, West P Street, and the north-south streets throughout the corridor. The West O Street redevelopment plan area is generally located at West P Street to the north, the first set of railroad tracks to the south, 9th Street to the east, and the northwest and southwest 70th Street to the west. Are there any ex parte communications?
I see none. We are ready to proceed with staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Consider that I've signed a form here. Okay. It's the David Copperfield version of signing the form. David Landis, Urban Development Department Director, bringing you today as the applicant a request for a finding of conformance with the long-term comprehensive plan for the city, the creation of a West O TIF district. This is something that you haven't seen before because it's been a rather long time since we've done this. We've done it about 4 times in the city, and each of them have come to a conclusion. Of them, the most obvious ones that you would recognize would be North 27th Street. Unlike the projects that we've brought you on a regular basis, where there's a specific piece of property and then there's a construction in that property creating a new jump in valuation, and then the diverting of the taxes on that jump of valuation for the project. This is where we define boundaries, start the 15-year clock, continue to collect taxes just as we do now, and send them to all of the political subdivisions, but we keep track of the growth of valuation inside the district. And the taxes from that growth in valuation are spent to improve the area. We've never done this without a strong presence of a business district or a neighborhood association who really wanted this to happen in their area. North 48th is another example in University Place. And in this case, the West O Business Association came to us and said, we'd like that tool to be available for us. We're an entryway. which is specifically called out by the long-term comprehensive plan. We are the approach from O, and that's a good deal of traffic. We know that we have almost 60% of our land that has no sidewalks. We know that we are shy in terms of the street trees that are common. We know that our utilities are between 60 and 80 years old in the neighborhood for the most part. And we know that there are streets that just they're small and short, but in very bad shape, and yet don't appear on the city's plans for immediate relief. So we have needs. We're patient, but we'd like to be able to use this tool in our area. It starts here on essentially South 1st Street and goes out to essentially Northwest 56th Street. It contains land on both sides of O Street. It contains a modest amount of some residential that are in relatively bad shape here. But generally speaking, we're talking about light industrial use, and we're talking about commercial, and we're talking about retail. It's their way of saying, we'd like to be able to have a tool available to us that we can help, along with the city, direct the use of this. We know that we don't determine what uses are spent with the money, but our relationship is to meet annually or biannually to go over what plans are and to listen to the prioritization of the neighborhood, or in this case, the business area, and to find the overlap between what the business area wants to see happen and what the city wants to see happen. We would want all of the things I've enumerated to happen if we could. By comparison, this is it's not as tree-lined as we'd like. It's not as sidewalked and pedestrian usable. It has an older infrastructure to it. And so we'd like to make use of this tool. We have a champion. Carl Eskridge has been part of our outreach to the West O Business Association. He's been in our meetings, and we've had a dozen or so talking about boundaries, talking about how it would be done, reviewing how the tool is used, and the fact that it doesn't immediately provide great deals of money, but it does build over time so that it is eventually substantial. And in the past, we've learned from our law department that in the event we do not have commitments or obligations for those resources, the district comes to an end. We did not get all 15 years out of North 27th because we got to a point where we'd done projects, but we hadn't identified the next project, and there was this interregnum of no obligations, and our law department said, when we read the redevelopment agreement, or law, the community redevelopment law, your ability to use this tool comes to an end if you do not have a continuing plan and expectation on how you're going to do that. We've learned from that. We now know how to maximize the use of this tool, and the Business Association has let us know that their needs are sufficient, that they can't envision that we're going to come to an end because there's lots to be done on West O. What questions can I answer for you?
How do you set the boundaries for the area?
First, we need to be in an area that's already previously been designated as blighted and substandard. And from that, which is a long-standing boundary, we narrowed the boundary to match the areas that the Business Association thought were in need of attention. And we followed very closely what their recommendations were. So what you've got a TIF district that's larger that you could make use of, and if a project was in that area, we could use it. And in fact, we've done 3 projects on West O in a recent time that you are familiar with because we brought them to you. In this case, we took a look at where we could use the tool, and we narrowed the boundaries to the places where the Business Association thought the most visible, the most traffic affected areas were, and where they thought future development might be profitably supported. And that's why the boundaries are where they are.
And then who decides how
how the money is spent? Who's the decision maker there?
We will. It is just as we do otherwise, we do it by contract, but in this case, it is a resource that the city controls, and the relationship is one of close collaboration. But it doesn't require both sides signing off. It's a resource that we make use. I will tell you that on occasion, we took ideas to the North 27th Business Association and said, we think this is a good idea. And they said, we agree. And there were times when they came to us and said, we have some old buildings that are empty or abandoned, and if you could just control them and bring them down and get it to usable land. The cost of an old building to buy and demolish tells developers to look someplace else where they're just buying land. If you would, we have some areas, some unattractive and empty and abandoned or near abandoned buildings, certainly empty. They're eyesores, and in fact, they gave us a PowerPoint one time and showed us 12 different buildings they wanted us to buy. Couldn't buy them all, but we bought several, and in fact, they've now been replaced. You've surplused some land, and we've recently sold a couple of those pieces of land, and we'll be having, for example, in that same function that was done exactly in what you're asking about, the developers at Little Saigon, which has been a very handsome development, buy land from us so that they can do housing at the other end of North 27th Street. That whole process was on the basis of collaboration, but only with city-determined monetary decisions.
So the association makes recommendations, but
Yes.
ultimately the city makes it.
We normally go out and ask them for recommendations. We normally have our own suggestions, and we look for a meeting of the minds.
So the 15 years is that start to finish, and so the valuation increase
Yes,
is
as a-
whatever's available in that 15-year period.
Exactly. Imagine that valuations go up 1.5% a year. Well, 1.5% isn't going to do much for us, but it'll do something. It'll plant some trees. But by 5 years, we'll be able to do some sidewalks. But in 10 years, we'll be able to do some significant infrastructure. But it grows slowly, and in that same accretion that occurs over time. The payoff is in the second half of a district. It's modest in the first half.
Dean?
Dave, I can't remember for sure, but is West Lincoln School close to this area?
Isn't it Arnold Heights? And it's on the north side over in an area, someplace up here. We would not reach that area.
Okay.
And we wouldn't reach Arnold Heights either.
I was thinking West Lincoln, though, elementary school.
Now I can't put in my mind's eye where West House School is. Right.
But you will, if it comes to that, you will talk to the school and the area around it.
We
yeah.
do, and in fact, we have a relationship with schools, and the schools have told us essentially one message. We support redevelopment, but what we don't want you to do is to TIF new subdivisions of single-family home ownership, because that will produce demand on us without the resources to provide that. That understanding is informal, but has been inviolate for about 12 years. We walk around with that in our back pocket every day, and if a developer comes in, and it's only occurred maybe 3 times that I can think of it in the last 12 years, because I think the community knows this, the local developers do, we've said, well, what a lovely project, and I hope you're terribly successful, and we're not going to help because we have an understanding with the schools.
The reason I bring up West Lincoln is they have a high population where the parents even don't speak English, and any project around causes some angst, and the school is the refuge for the families that live in the trailer courts. And
Right. We would not anticipate, but for perhaps 2 blocks on P Street.
Okay.
We would not envision ourselves looking at bringing down existing residential and replacing it with new. And if somebody bought us a specialized project, it's quite likely we'd come back to you for its special recognition. This is that growth of the general area and the investment in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Tracy?
When I was reading, streetscape features, would that include signs, potentially, or is that just gonna be straight lighting and landscaping?
We would not be foreclosed from considering signage.
Does
We do,
something-
for example, know that we have some streetlights that are out of date and are in need of being repaired. It's not uncommon for streetlights to carry signage. So it's entirely possible that at the point in which we can afford to do something about the replacing of old and outmoded streetlights, that they would carry some signage capacity with them. But that hasn't risen to the level of something that we've talked about. The more pressing needs are the ones that I've already enumerated. But we would be entitled to do that if we so chose. And there would be an opportunity to do that, I think, presented by those streetlights, and what that means for signage.
Now, I know you guys are forming a BID to kind of accomplish this. Do all business owners have to be a member of the BID, the Business Improvement District?
BIDs are formulated by a process of going out and finding people who will be responsible for it. And then a public process in which if they come back with a recommendation to create one, then there is a chance for dissident owners to create a petition process. The city only has the power to create a BID if there isn't a majority of unwilling businesses. But what you don't get is an individual decision of being in or out. It is a communal decision. It is on a majority rule, but flipped in the negative by saying when the majority objects, it doesn't go forward. That's why the process of notice, of public meetings, of the city staff and that organizing group meeting with business owners and talking about what those responsibilities might be is so critical to the process.
To be a member of the BID, do they have to put money in, or?
What happens is a BID has an assessment based on square footage, lineage, and they can vary. In the past, we've had some BIDs in the area of about $3.50 a foot. And that money is used for particularly the maintenance of landscaping. We have had a wrinkle with that that's been troublesome to us. Without a lot of discussion, the law department put in a 5% maximum in which the BID could grow its budget every year, which presented no problems and was just really a matter of a document and some gray language at the end of the document, until we found that in going to finding private sector suppliers of those services, we were facing 15 and 20% bumps in what they were. And so we've had to find solutions. One of the solutions in the Havelock area was, we'll take care of it. We have people that we know. We think we can get it cheaper than through the city budgeting process. We have people that will contribute, and we'll take care of the responsibility. In others, we've had one that said, we will go through the difficulty of creating the entire district anew without that provision. So it's been a mixed bag recently in how we've administered in the BID setting. But it doesn't fall to the Parks Department or the Public Works Department in the way that normal city-oriented landscaping does. This is enhanced landscaping largely with the approval and agreement of the collaborative process of dealing with the business association. Other questions?
Other questions? Thank you, Dave.
Just one.
Maya, sorry.
I'm just wondering, as a general kind of vision for the project, upon completion, what do you, in your sort of best case scenario, what would you hope to have accomplished?
I'm
Like
so
an example.
thrilled to be asked about a best case scenario question.
Well, we'll
I'm
aim
so
for the
rarely
stars,
asked.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to be for West Out to take its place among any attractive entry corridor that we have in the city. I'd love to see it blooming with flowers. I'd love to see bushes. I'd love to see trees. I'd love to see good signage that directed people to the use of the city. I'd love to see vibrant and contemporary and current infrastructure. I'd like to see sidewalks. I'd like to see public spaces every now and then, in which perhaps there was a place for somebody to have lunch and gather and have things that go on that makes it as attractive and as much of a magnet as any place in the city. And it'll probably be another 6 or 7 years before I get asked a best-case scenario question again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for David? Thank you, David.
You bet.
Do we have testimony in support of this item? Is there testimony in opposition of this item? Do we have questions of the staff, David in particular? Any more questions? Okay, and David is staff and applicant, so do you want rebuttal? I don't think you need to.
I don't object to anything that was said.
Okay, very good.
He seemed to know what he was saying.
Yeah. Then I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
Move in conformance.
Second.
Joy, second. Oh,
Man, I'm just jumping in
yeah,
today.
no worries, no worries.
Okay? Discussion.
I'm happy to see this part of the city receive some attention. I think it's long-deserved, and I look forward to the improvements.
And I think shooting for the stars is outstanding. The entry corridor will be wonderful.
Yeah, it is an
Agreed.
important entry corridor and it deserves some attention here. So, anyone else? Okay, we're ready to vote.
Beckius,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Poe,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Okay, the next items are all related. Item 4.2A is Comprehensive Plan Conformance Number 18012. To review as to conformance with the 2040 Comp Plan, a request to declare city-owned property as surplus. Item 4.2B, change of zone number 18016 from R2 residential to P public use. Item 4.2C, special permit number 13055C to allow for the expansion of nonconforming use and to amend the special permit with requested waiver to allow parking within the front yard setback on property generally located at 1245 South Folsom Road. 4.2D is special permit number 18023 to allow for a non-residential healthcare facility with a requested waiver to allow parking within the front yard setback. And item 4.2E is street and alley vacation number 18003 to vacate an east portion of West B Street adjacent to Block 6. These are all generally located at West B Street and Folsom Street. Are there any ex parte communications?
Yes, I have a few. In April, I received informational material about, from the organization itself, Morning Hope, about the plans for the new location, as well as the services that would be provided. And then in May, I received a tour of the Willard Community Center by Janelle Soderling, and Lisa Smith was also there as a supporter of the community center, and they showed me the locations where Morning Hope would go in, also the parking, expressed support for the project. And then I ran into Nicole Fleck Tews at a fundraiser, and and we both acknowledged that these applications would be on the agenda. We didn't discuss them.
Thomas?
About 6 months ago, I had a conversation with Lori Seibel in regards to this project. At that point, I think the Community Health Endowment of Lincoln was considering being a funder of this project.
Anyone else?
I've had general conversations with other not-for-profits about this project, and I believe the mayor has mentioned it to me at one point.
Okay. Very good. Desi?
Thank you, Commissioners. Dusty Redmond, Planning Staff. As Amy explained, there are 5 associated requests, including 2 special permits. One you are familiar with the Willard Community Center expansion of a non-conforming use. The applicant is requesting to amend their site plan to basically shift their parking from the west side of the property to the south side of the property. And the other special permit is a new special permit, and that is for the Morning Hope Grief Center, and that would be a special permit for a non-residential healthcare facility. Just to orient you to the properties, so South Folsom runs north-south here, West A Street here, and then of course West B Street is here. There are a couple waivers that are associated with these special permits that I can answer if you have any questions. This group of applications is basically to allow 2 nonprofit entities to co-locate on a premise in the area along South Folsom and West B Street, and also to reconfigure an existing park. And so Nicole Flectus is here from the Parks and Rec Department. She is going to provide the history of the projects and also speak to the public benefits of the project. So I will ask her to come up and detail that information.
Thank you, Desi. Good afternoon, commissioners. Nice to see you. I do have one other map I might just. So, as Desi outlined for you, this group of 5 items relates to kind of the development of a campus area at Schroeder Park that really coordinates this neighborhood park with the existing Willard Community Center, and then the development of a new site for Morning Hope. The surplus, the change of zone special permits, and street vacation will really facilitate this campus approach and will allow Morning Hope and Willard to share facilities for programming and extend programming into Schroeder Park. As Desi mentioned, Willard and Morning Hope are both nonprofit facilities. In the case of Willard providing neighborhood-based services, and in the case of Morning Hope providing community-based services. And we really think there's a benefit in reconfiguring Schroeder Park and co-locating these facilities as part of that campus to really integrate those services and increase the overall benefits. And we think they're complementary in nature. We have representatives of both Willard Community Center and Morning Hope here this afternoon to speak with you and to talk more about the services that they provide. If you've got questions, I'll discuss the surplus, the change of zone, and street vacation items a little bit more, and then I'll ask them to give you any more information on their services or the special permits. So Schroeder Park. The current configuration of Schroeder Park is just primarily south of the West B Street right-of-way. It's about 1.3 acre neighborhood park, and it's bordered on the north by that undeveloped B Street right-of-way, and then there is a parcel of city-owned land that's west of the area that was sold to Willard Community Center a few years ago, and it's currently not part of the park. And so the proposal then is to reconfigure that boundary to include that western lot so that it would run more north-south rather than east-west, and then to sell the eastern portion, about 0.7 acres, to Morning Hope for their area. The newly configured area of Schroeder Park would be just slightly larger than what is currently there, would be a little bit over 1.4 acres with the newly configured area. And then the change of zone that you have before you is proposed to just clearly rezone that area from R2 to P for public use. We also plan to have a resolution before the City Council to formally dedicate that land as parkland. So it's clear once it's reestablished in its reconfigured location that that's the long-term use. We'll be working on the development of a master plan for the park this summer. We'll be reaching out to both Willard Community Center and Morning Hope, as well as the surrounding neighborhood, to work on that and getting input from the neighborhood for the improvements that we'll have as part of the new parkland. So the purpose of the surplus obviously is the sale of that about 0.7 acres of property to Morning Hope for the new facility, the reconfiguration of the park. As Desi said, the street vacation that's proposed is this undeveloped West B Street right-of-way. The western portion would be retained by Lincoln Parks and Recreation for the park, and then ultimately the north-south, the north portion sold to Willard, and the southern part sold to Morning Hope as part of that surplus. The parking lot, then this existing parking lot would be expanded to the west and be part of that joint parking area for both Willard and for Morning Hope. And we do have a final plat that's in process. I think that was part of your report. And that we will need to finalize that and get that ready before the street vacation moves on to city council. So we're working on that. That will create those 3 separate lots for Morning Hope, for Willard, for Morning Hope, and for the park. After we complete the master planning for the park, we'll be relocating that playground this fall before the land would be sold and formally transferred to Morning Hope. And then we'll be looking at any additional improvements. Typically, we would have a half basketball that's part of a neighborhood park, as well as perhaps a shelter, so depending on what feedback we get from the neighborhood. We did have a neighborhood meeting, and we will have another one as part of the master plan, but we did have one in December of 2017, and then the Parks and Recreation Board also reviewed this proposal in January of 2018 and recommended approval. So we just, in general, I think, believe that this will serve the neighborhood well, serve the community well. It's consistent with the guidance that's been adopted by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board regarding the sale or transfer of land for park purposes, and we think it's a great opportunity to partner with some other community organizations. The Parks and Recreation Department, the city will receive compensation for the cost of the land and for the cost to relocate the playground as part of this effort as well. And we feel like not only does it not diminish the recreation value of Schroeder Park, but actually could result in increasing that recreation value. I should mention that we will no longer have direct access onto South Folsom Street from the park. There is a sidewalk connection that will be retained in a public access easement, and we've talked about some joint signage, if you're familiar with the signage at Densmore Park for the library and the Y, something like that to clearly communicate to folks that there's the neighborhood park access there and how to get there. So before I step away, I'll be available to answer any questions that you have for me, but I wanted to let you know that we have Janelle Sodeling here, the Executive Director for Willard Community Center, Carly Runstad, the Executive Director for Morning Hope, both to speak to you, and I think she'll ask Michael Penn, the architect, to show you a couple images to help you understand what the building is proposed to look like. And then if we have some detailed questions that relate to the engineering and layout, Marcia Kinning is here from Riga Engineering. Riga has represented all 3 of the entities in putting together these applications for a formal approval. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer
Nicole,
those.
did you have any concerns from the neighborhood when you held the neighborhood?
We did not, and we really tried to reach out through flyers and a sign, and we had very low attendance, but we've not heard any concerns.
Thank you.
So the park will retain the name? It will just be?
Yes, it will
Reload.
retain the name, and for the record, the spelling is correct on your applications and not correct on the signage in the park. We learned that as part of the research that we did for looking up the history in the parkland.
Will that be corrected then?
We will correct the signage, yeah. Yes.
So the city is selling some pieces of the land. Is there any acquisition of land?
There's not any acquisition needed. Instead, what we'll be doing is formally dedicating this piece that the city still holds and has not been part of the park, just west of Willard Community Center.
But that's still, that is owned
That
already by the
is still
city.
city-owned, yes.
And as far as taxes, real estate taxes, there are 2 nonprofits that are acquiring, so they wouldn't be, they'd still stay off the tax rolls.
Well, I think they could speak to that, but I think the nonprofits are obligated to pay
Okay.
taxes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Nicole, so I can make sure that I understand. So right now, the label under the potential Morning Hope site,
Yeah.
that's a playground right there.
Yes, that's right.
Technically, right now, the Schroeder Park is kind of more of a horizontal.
That's exactly
And we're gonna kind of
right.
flip it up on its side and make it vertical.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Other questions for Nicole?
Will the public have access to the parking lot?
So there'll be a public access easement over the parking lot that is not intended to be part of parking for the park. Just because we don't typically provide parking for neighborhood parks. And so I don't think that anybody would necessarily know the difference if somebody is there parking for the park, but we expect most of it to be pedestrian traffic for the park.
Thank you.
Anything else?
If no other questions, then I'd ask Janelle Sutherland
Very good.
to come up. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Janelle Soderling, Executive Director, Willard Community Center. As you know, we just completed our total renovation and expansion of our building, and I want to thank all of you for your support of our project. I want to invite all of you to our community open house next Thursday, June 14th, from 5:30 to 7. We're expecting a big turnout for that. The neighborhood's very excited about it, so thank you again for your support. Our renovation and expansion project added 2,300 square feet to our 100-year-old building. This is going to allow us to offer more programs and services to our under-resourced neighborhood. We have expanded our child care programs and will be collaborating with more nonprofits in order to be able to bring needed services such as food programs, ELL classes, health and wellness classes, services for seniors, special events, business and family gatherings, and other programs that have been requested by our community. This summer, we have 120 kindergarten through 8th grade kids in our building participating in a expanded educational summer program from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. This fall, we'll start our expanded preschool program for 41 3 and 4-year-olds. We will also continue our pre-K program for 24 and 5-year-olds over at 1030 West Q Street. We will bring back our before and after school program for Park Middle School kids. We will provide transportation to and from Park Middle School and also help them with homework and provide them a healthy snack after school every day. And of course, we'll continue our before and after school programs at Roper Elementary and Lakeview Elementary. And at Lakeview, we're the lead agency for the Community Learning Center. Our building renovation has brought new life to our neighborhood. Everywhere I look, there are home improvements, and the neighborhood is getting improved and revitalized, and it's very exciting right now. And it sounds like we're going to have even more improvements in our neighborhood. It's a perfect time to collaborate with Morning Hope and City Parks and Recreation. The three of us complement each other, and we work very well together. The idea of a campus for human service partners working together to improve lives shows so much potential for the future. A campus that serves our children and also enhances the whole family and the community. I want to thank you again. Better partners would be difficult to find. All of you are helping Willard to meet our mission of helping area residents grow, connect, and contribute to our community. We support this project, and we hope that you do too.
Questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carly Runestad. I'm the Executive Director of the Morning Hope Grief Center, and sure appreciate you having us here today. What I'd like to do is just very quickly tell you about the programs and services that we offer and that we would be bringing into the community, and then, as Nicole said, ask Michael to come up, our architect, and give you just a brief idea of what the glimpse of what our house might look like when we're out there. What we know about childhood bereavement is that it is remarkably common, yet it is tragically underaddressed. We know that more than 1 out of every 20 children living in the United States will experience the death of a parent or a sibling before the age of 18. But that parental and sibling death is only part of the overall picture. That statistic doesn't account for how many children will experience the death of grandparents and aunts and uncles and close friends. So by the time we graduate from high school, very few of us will graduate without having experienced the death of someone that we love. And we also know that many of those kids, with the right support and assessment and strategies and interventions, that they will go on to live survive and to thrive and to live happy, productive lives. But when they don't have that support in place, sometimes those statistics can be detrimental. So Morning Hope has been in the community for 24 years. We've been here a long time, and we are here to address those statistics. We are a grief support network for children, teens, young adults, and their caregivers who have experienced the death of anyone in their life, whether that be a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, or a close friend. We typically work with kids between the ages of about 5 through 18. We also work at all times with their adult caregivers, and we have a young adult population that we have added in as well. One of the great things about Morning Hope is that all of our programs and services are offered free of charge. They have been offered free of charge for 24 years, and that's thanks to the generosity of this community and to individuals that are sitting in this room today, and we very much appreciate that. We know that when families seek out our services, they are dealing with medical bills, they're dealing with insurance costs, funeral expenses. About 52% of the time when we have families come to us, they've had a parent die or a spouse die, and so suddenly that second income stream, or sometimes their only income stream, is now gone. So when we're able to say that our programs are offered free of charge, you can just instantly hear that relief in that individual's voice. So we have been, like I said, we've been in the community for 24 years. We have rented or been in multiple locations wherever we could find a spot. Right now we're in a 110-year-old Tudor-style home near Nebraska Wesleyan. We rent from them. We love it. We love the ambiance. However, there's no central air, so it's extremely hot right now. It's also very, very cold in the winter. But the big issue isn't the house. We love the house. The space is that we have space for groups of about 20, and we have huge groups, and we are now waitlisting people. We are turning people away. And there's really nothing worse than having a mom call you in January and say, my spouse died, I have 4 kids, and I'd like to get my children into your program right away, and for us to say, well, we can get you in late March. That's not who we want to be, and so we've spent several years trying to look at what is our future, where can we be, how can we expand our services, how can we enhance our services to meet the needs of the community. I know I have a very short time, and so I won't go through everything we have looked at, but I will tell you that we've spent several years doing community assessments, doing feasibility studies. We've looked at commercial properties, but they didn't have that comforting space that a home has. We've looked at some homes, but we ran into ADA accessibility issues and parking and zoning, and so in the end, this option presented itself, and we are so ecstatic and delighted about this, just to be with another nonprofit and to have that synergy between nonprofits as opposed to a standalone facility, to be near this park where we can have great outdoor space and not only to help our bereaved families, but also to bring in additional wellness services and programs for the neighborhood and the community in general. So we are very excited, and we hope that with your blessing that we are able to build our forever home in Schroeder Park.
Questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Michael Penn, I'm architect and principal with Sinclair Haley Architects. Our firm's been given the privilege to assist Morning Hope on their project. In support of the application, I've brought a couple exhibits for the Commission's information, and just to tell you a little bit about where that project would be headed. The first of these, hopefully it's fairly readable for you, is the portion of the property that would be Morning Hope's. You see Folsom here, north is up. And this also delineates the parking area that would be between the Morning Hope building and Willard Community Center. And then Schroeder Park is everything here on this far side. The Morning Hope structure would, besides the parking that is there on the north, would have some other parking that would wrap on the backside between it and the park. Carly mentioned the current facility that they have. This is 3 to 3.5 times the space, but it's much needed. And the intention is to provide a structure that is fitting to the neighborhood, and there was a mention of neighborhood meetings and so on, and some preliminary images were shown there just of the general style. I'd like to, as we move forward, the second exhibit here is the concept image that we've done for them. And although the house is significantly larger than what they have and larger than maybe a single-family home in that neighborhood, we're working to develop the details of the project so that it has a scale that fits with the neighborhood. And both important for the residents in the area, but also really it's a requirement that Carly had when she came to us and we started working on it, that it also needs to have a sort of familiarity and be disarming and familiar, so that the good work they do, the architecture and the building sort of supports that atmosphere. That's all I have. Any other questions for me?
So is that looking from Folsom Street?
Yes, I'm sorry. This would be, if you were driving in the parking lot between Willard and that, this would be from Folsom Street and what's being vacated, B Street. So the entrance for Morning Hope would be between facing Willard, and the Willard entrance and the Morning Hope entrance would sort of complement each other across that parking lot.
So really from the street, you're gonna be seeing the side of this building.
Yes, this side.
So you still have kind of a porch type feeling on that.
Yeah, there's a porch that would be much of the, what would be the north, and then you can see the intention is to wrap that around the corner briefly for 12 or 15 feet along that side of the structure.
My concern is, I'm not sure if neighborhood design standards are applicable to this part of the city. And I don't want just a blank wall facing the street, because I don't think that's gonna be very homey. It's not gonna look like a house then, because it's gonna look like it's turned on its side and facing the wrong way.
I didn't bring an image of that side of the building, and the details we're working on, these are concept images, but I think that's a good point. We have the ability, if we would want to have sidewalks or other things come directly up onto that porch from Folsom, if that were thought to be a bit more to address that street directly. Our firm's done a number of single-family residential as well, and we often do that when we're dealing with a corner lot, for example, to try to address both directions. So we can certainly look at that as we move forward.
I mean, it looks lovely. I'm just worried about the street view too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good concern.
Other questions? Michael, how much square feet is in this
The
building?
new structure, basement included, will be just over 12,000
Okay.
square feet.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think where we are is we'll ask for testimony and support now, because we've had, I think this was all testimony from the applicant. Would consider it that way anyway. Do we have testimony and support? And we will ask for testimony and support and in opposition for all 5 of the items before us. Testimony and support. Okay, I don't see any. Is there?
When the public gets to ask questions?
It is.
Okay.
Is this in support or in opposition? Because I'm going to ask testimony in opposition next.
I'm not in support or opposition.
You just want to have some questions? Okay, why don't you come up? So we'll move forward and,
Well, my sister and I,
can you give your name and your address?
Oh,
please?
yes.
Thank you.
I'm Pam Heinbigner, and my sister and I are the only property owners that are on this side of the park. We own the property at 751 West B
Can you
Street.
maybe point
Can
to
you
it on the
point?
map?
Yeah.
These maps are really confusing to me. It would be right here,
Okay.
correct? Okay, and we just recently got a letter in the mail about the proposals. We had no idea before this. We've never been asked to any neighborhood meetings. We've never looked at the application, nothing. This is the first time we've been involved in this, so we're kind of, still confused at, what they're saying.
We do like the improvements that they, you know, have done to Willard Community Center. But we're just, you know, kind of concerned on exactly what they're doing. Because the aerial maps are fine and all, but until today, we had no idea what was even planned, except for this letter that was sent. And it'd be pretty easy, you know, by going in and looking at your house taxes to find who owns this property. So I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a chance to hear about this, I guess. I don't know if it really involves the property that we own or not, but, you know, it's been in the family for 60 years. And I don't know how if they plan on opening some of the street on West B. I know what's there now, but I'm kind of confused on what the plans are exactly, because we didn't have a chance to hear it until now. That's all.
Do you have any other questions? We can ask the questions of the applicant or of staff later.
Excuse
Do
me?
you have any other questions other than access that you would like us to ask staff or the applicant? Because whatever you ask us now, we can ask the applicant or staff later.
Well, yeah, I'd like to know if the street's gonna be opened up, if it's gonna concern any of that area there on that side of the street. So the park is gonna go where the ball diamond is now?
Looks like it.
Okay, then they're taking out the playground area, and that's gonna be Morning Hope. And all that land up to my mom's house will be
Park.
still park?
Still park.
And then right across the street where the ball diamond is will still be park?
Yep.
Okay, so it's really just the only thing that it's affecting is right across from Willard Community Center,
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
park there.
Yes.
And the
Okay.
parking will be expanded a little bit.
Well, if you're taking out the parking that's between Willard and the playground, then your parking's gonna be somewhere else, which is,
I think that's
Well, I think
staying.
that parking's gonna stay, but it will get expanded a little bit farther to the west. Parking lot will get a little bit larger,
okay, I think,
expanded to the west, up to the boundary of the park, where the new park boundary is.
It appears that all the property abutting adjacent your property will continue to be park ground, and we'll confirm that.
okay. So the additional parking would be,
Access from Southwest 8th and West B.
It would be good, could you come up to the microphone,
yeah,
please?
that makes more sense than what I said.
No.
I was just. didn't
Carolyn.
say it that way.
Can you give us your
Your
name?
name and address?
Yes, Carolyn Rehor, 622 Oregon Trail, Lincoln, Nebraska. What I had a concern, is there going to be traffic coming in from Southwest 8th to West B Street? Where the complex avenue for the apartments on Darren Avenue, it's increased so much traffic there. And I know they have done some improvements, which is great, because that area's been neglected for years. We do see some traveling along West B Street. Of course, it's a dead end now because it ends in a grassy area there. But will they be seeing more traffic coming in off of Southwest 8th to get to any of your other facilities? Or is that going to put a burden on Folsom Street? Because if you try to get out on Folsom Street and C Street, West C Street, it's kind of dangerous because they come up over a slight rise and a hill quickly. and you have to be really on your toes. Plus Folsom traffic has just increased greatly. So that's what my question kind of is. What have they decided about traffic flow? About the Southwest 8th and West B Street? Are they going to try to open that up at all? That's a playground, so they're not going to do that. But you are going to have a lot more increased traffic on Folsom.
I think we can ask Public Works. We have a representative from Public Works here. We can
Okay,
ask about that.
because that's at a four-way stop on Folsom and West A.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's nothing for C Street and in that area, and you have industry out there, and when they come off the bypass and everything, it can be very dangerous.
Okay. You have any other questions that we can ask?
No, I was
Were you?
concerned about maybe if they were going to put another road in there too because of all the apartments that are in there now, and they said that was not in the plan at this time.
We can ask about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But yes, I would like to be, in contact with any development that goes on in my area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I think we are at staff questions.
Do we have any more opposition?
Oh, is there any other opposition or other testimony, one way or the other, I think? Other questions? Okay? Okay, thank you. So staff questions. We have some questions I think we need to ask.
Thank you, Dusty Redmond, planning staff.
Okay, we have some access and street questions.
Sure. So this portion of West B Street will be vacated. It's currently not built. There's no plans to create a through street here. So the access going through here will not happen because it's getting vacated up until this point. So this will become parkland.
Okay.
Would these testifiers have received notification from the city about the zoning change, or is there a reason why they might not have been contacted?
I believe they stated they were contacted. They did receive the letter,
Oh,
so.
they did, okay, I misunderstood that.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's part of, state law requirements is that all property owners within 200 feet must be contacted by the city. So regarding any sort of land use case like these you see today, yes, property owners within 200 feet would receive that notification.
So Desi, I'm not sure this is a question for you or for Nicole. However, we do have a park that's rather interior. How would you anticipate with no right of parking, except for on the adjacent streets, but no parking lot? I know that Nicole stated that she anticipated the majority of users getting to the park on foot. However,
It's a neighborhood park. And there's different classifications. So I think Nicole is probably gonna have to answer that. Sorry.
I'm happy with whoever feels qualified to answer that question.
So the question is access to the park if people are coming by car or,
What would you anticipate?
Well-
Where would you anticipate people park to use the park?
okay, well, again, in general, we do not plan for parking at the neighborhood parks. We don't construct parking for neighborhood parks. They're intended to be accessed by foot. That's not to say somebody might not drive to the park. But certainly, the parking that's going to be new and is existing is on the east end of the park. So I would anticipate if anybody does access by car, that they would access from Folsom Street. And then, again, we'll have that sidewalk connection, and we do recognize the importance because of the lack of direct access off of Folsom Street for pedestrians, that we really need to be mindful of signage and making sure people know. And that would be where the signage would be placed, we would be partnering with Morning Hope or with Willard to identify parking right off, or rather signage right off of South Folsom Street. So I would expect pedestrian access in large part to come perhaps from that direction as well.
Does Parks and Rec currently share the parking facility at this location?
We don't consider it to be parking for the neighborhood park. So we do currently own that parking.
Own it, you do own
Yeah,
it,
we
and
do
people are
own it.
allowed to park there.
Yes, and I
So
don't think.
there is parking for this neighborhood
There is
park.
parking. There wouldn't be anything, once the property is sold, there wouldn't be anything prohibiting Willard or Morning Hope from putting up signs to say that it's exclusively for those facilities.
Sure.
But, yeah, barring that, someone could park there.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you remind all of us the uses that are planned for a neighborhood park as opposed to a community park or a larger park, and how that affects drive to traffic versus pedestrian traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, we would have some playground equipment. A shelter would typically be part of a neighborhood park. Informal open space play fields as opposed to formal ball fields or soccer fields or other types of venues where people would typically drive for more tournament sports. This would just be informal open access play fields, and then that half basketball court. Much smaller scale and much less informal than what we would have at a community or regional park.
Thanks.
And I'm disappointed to hear that Ms. Heimberger and Ms. Marymore didn't get notices for the public meeting, and we're very happy to work with them and make sure they get whatever information they need and that they're part of the master planning process. So happy to do that, and I can get their information after the meeting.
Nicole, is Stransky Park a neighborhood park?
Stransky is a neighborhood park, of course, near Irvingdale and some other parks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of
You
in a
don't have a-
complex.
Yeah, a big parking lot there.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so-
Yeah.
Tracy, do you have a question?
I know that you haven't gone through the master planning process yet for this, so do you have an idea where that sidewalk access will be?
Yeah. The sidewalk access we don't expect to change, and you can see it a little bit on that area. So it's just north of the existing parking lot, and unless we identify some conditions that need to be corrected with the sidewalk, we would expect that to remain in the same place.
Do you know at this point either where you're going to put it, replace that playground structure?
I think we'd like to get some feedback from the neighborhood, but our initial thoughts are that we would perhaps sort of align it in the center on access with the vacated right-of-way, and so it's visible from that parking area.
I have some questions for Desi.
Okay.
So Desi, just to solidify for the neighbor ladies, West B Street is not being built. It's being vacated up until the parkland. Actually, is it being vacated all the way through to the connector on their side?
Not all the way through. Yeah, the yellow represents where it would be vacated. The reason why is they need access off of West B, so
Sure.
we wouldn't be able to vacate
Right,
that
but
portion.
so anything that's not built is being vacated?
With the exception of the existing parking, yes. So no infrastructure for a road is built or would be proposed to be built. The city has no plans to build that. That's why it'd be agreeable to city departments to vacate that portion. Yes, ma'am.
And I should have asked while they were up here, but if there's not a dead end sign on their side of West B Street, can we maybe see about getting one there?
Yes, we can definitely look into getting a dead end sign put at the end there.
And can you tell me, so I can't tell from the aerial for sure, where is the ball diamond?
I believe it's up in this portion right here.
That's right.
Don't know where my other.
That doesn't show up very well there.
Okay. So no changes to that right now?
Not right now. We might make some changes depending on, again, the feedback during that master planning process. But we would expect to still have a play area available as part of that neighborhood park.
And then I think they also had some questions about kind of traffic counts on Folsom Street. Do we expect some increase over there?
Sure. Public Works is always a part of these review applications, and South Folsom Street is built to collector standards. It is a collector street, and so any sort of, this type of increase in traffic, there is definitely expected to be some sort of increase in traffic with these uses, bringing in a new use. But again, South Folsom is built to handle that sort of increase in traffic. But yeah, Public Works, we've met with them and they have not had any concerns over, this type of increase in traffic.
And I'm assuming it's West C Street up there. It goes all the way between 8th and Folsom. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
I would also offer that, well, there would be some increased destination traffic to Morning Hope, that Morning Hope's services and Willard's will not necessarily be at the same time, which is one of the reasons they can share in their parking,
Right.
so.
Nicole, I noticed on, when we sell off parkland, we try to replace it with something somewhere. And does that have to stay in the same area, or can that be anywhere in the city, or how does that?
Well, typically, if we did not have this city-owned lot here today, I think it would have been a very different situation. So typically, we're looking at replacing in the same area. And because we have that availability here, we're able to keep the park at the same size. So as a result of that, when we receive compensation for the purchase of that piece from the city, that would be part of our advanced land acquisition, and we may buy parkland then elsewhere.
And then I also noticed the Parks and Rec Advisory Board had to approve this project, this purchase.
Yeah.
Has that happened already, or does it still have to come before them?
It came before them in January, and they recommended approval.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yep, I have another one for
Okay,
Desi,
go.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you shouldn't have paused. Keep going.
So, Desi, I noticed in the staff report that it's talking about some lots that don't have street frontage, and I was a little confused as to where that is, because they called it Block 4, and it looked like it was maybe talking about Block 6. I couldn't tell.
There may be a typo, that's quite possible, but so the legal lot, there's still some legal lots on these properties, and so they don't show up, which makes it even more confusing, but legally they're still there, so that's why we would require a final plat to get rid of those narrow lots that are existing today. Yeah, exactly, so right up here.
Okay, so I think you really mean Block 6.
Yeah. So up here, there are some legal lots. So if we vacate this portion,
And that's where the Willard Community Center is now.
right, so, it just is kind of a legal matter in order to get rid of those
I
lots.
just want to make sure I was looking at the right spot. more
Yeah,
than
thank
anything.
you for pointing out that
And then,
correction.
so when they say, the 3 lots, one lot is the park, one park's really gonna be the Morning Hope, and then one lot is where Willard is at.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think that's all of mine.
Okay, very good. Others?
Yeah, I just had one. Just considering the fact that we've already approved largely the Willard Community Center, and that is already gone through the process except for the parking portion here, that what's before us today, how much traffic do you think realistically that the Morning Hope application generates? Obviously, the park traffic is there already. Willard Community Center may increase the number of people they can serve, but we've already addressed that, and that already exists. It may be a question for the applicant, but I'm assuming not everybody who can be served is there exactly at the same time every day. Do you have any idea of what we are talking about here today? What does that add in terms of?
Sure. Kind of like previously stated, Public Works has been a part of this review process, but I would defer to them to kind of answer any specific traffic increases that you may have.
Okay.
Bob Simmering, Public Works. We did not ask for a traffic study here. This is a arterial street, and it has stop control at all the intersections, a four-way stop at at A Street and South Folsom. Typically, we would ask for a traffic study if we were concerned that there was going to be a 50% increase in the traffic for any location like that. This is a little bit different also because it's the built environment. And if we were looking at doing a left turn lane or something like that, we would be taking out houses and maybe cutting off part of the Willard Center frontage and things like that. So the options aren't, there's no real option to do anything terribly significant on South Folsom. And I think the key is how much traffic is generated in peak hour. And when we're looking at a facility like Morning Hope, they probably have very little impact on peak hour. And any of you that have been through that intersection, there is probably a 15-minute period in the morning and in the afternoon where it is jammed up, but that's about the extent of it. That's a busy intersection, but it's not congested except for those peak hour periods.
Questions?
So the addition of Morning Hope to the site does not significantly increase traffic at peak hours, which is
That is what our
the
opinion is,
neighborhood
yes.
and that's not only driven by Willard Community Center either. Obviously, there is Lincoln
I think
Industries
they're not a
and
peak hour
other-
user either.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other applicant comments or rebuttal from any of the applicants, the triad? No? We good? Okay. I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
Move conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Discussion?
This appears to be a series of, these series of requests seems to be a well-thought-out plan, a nice use of the existing space, and a thoughtful reimagination of the park that's there.
Others?
I'm absolutely delighted to see this project. I think that you see more and more a bigger push for not-for-profits to merge together and to interact with one another. I know how long you've been looking for a home, and I'm glad you found it. And I think Parks and Rec has done a wonderful job refiguring. I am just thrilled you have a home, we'll have a home, and it's with the two of you. So I will be supporting this strongly.
Others? Maya?
I agree with what's been said, and I think the fact that the park actually may end up being a little bit larger and get some updated features means that nobody loses here. So it's all a great synergies all the way around.
Anybody else?
This is a great combination, I agree, and I think you guys will all have success, interlocating together.
Yeah, I want to add, it's a great concept, but I also think that the partners here, Parks Department and the two nonprofits and the architect, both architects, BVH was with Willard, this will be great work. I know that it's in the conceptual stage, there's a lot to work out, but this will be a very successful, beautiful project, so I'm going to support it as well. Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, this is for comprehensive plan conformance number 18012. The motion was for conformance with the comprehensive plan. Beckius?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on...
We still have others to vote on.
Or more.
All of you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong pa- No. Okay, yeah, right, okay.
We have the change of zone next.
Yep, okay.
there a motion for change of
Oh,
zone number
Yep.
one?
Move approval, core.
Yep.
Second
Joy.
Harris.
I do just want to put one more thing out there. Ladies, make sure that you participate in that master park planning process. I've been through it a couple of times, and they'll want to hear your feedback and encourage your neighbors to participate too, because they want to make sure that no one's, that everyone's on board, and hopefully everyone gets what they want.
We will.
Good.
Okay. I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, I'm sorry, who made the motions on that?
I did core.
Gordon Harris?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Beckius?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next.
Move approval of the special permit.
Second, Beckius.
Okay, this will be final action on this item. Beckius?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next.
Move approval on the special permit 18023.
Second Joy?
Beckius?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes. And
Motion carries 7-0, and this is also final action on this item.
And finally, the street and alley vacation.
Move approval of the street and alley vacation.
Second, core.
Beckius?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
7-0.
Now.
Okay. Now, at this time, anyone wishing to comment or speak on an item not on the agenda, please do so. I don't see any, so we are adjourned. Thank you.